Good afternoon, everybody. Terry Daniel here with voiceover sermons, another electrifying episode. I'm good for one of those every 6.5 months. I don't, Tim and Carin, I don't know how consistent you are with some of the stuff you are, but my Achilles heel is promising a new episode the following week and then vanishing for a year. Do you guys have
Sounds
this
about
issue?
right.
It's the follow through. It's the follow through
follow
that
through.
we need to work on.
It's ADHD. It's severe ADHD. I mean, you guys have it. You're voice actors, right? So there's some mental stuff going on, right?
You know,
Tim, do you have ADD?
I don't know. I forget.
You know what? I don't think you do because that's the cleanest studio I've ever seen in my life.
Oh, this.
You know, your backdrop, it looks like, I mean, I'm stalking the background and it looks like the rug was even vacuumed and
Rug's been vacuumed. Yep.
are you kind of the type A practical type?
Oh, absolutely not. You should see what's in front of me. You should see the desk right here.
Oh yeah, see that's
where everything hides.
That's what people hide. You know, the hamster shit is right in front of them, and there's mice crawling around everywhere. Oh, this is just disgusting.
Yeah, right.
Carin, hi.
hello.
All right. Well, who came up first
no
of all?
mice over here.
Oh yeah. Well, thank you for doing this. I got so tired of hearing my own voice in these podcast episodes that I wanted to start bringing in guests, and NAVA has gotten very popular in a very short period of time. So whose idea was it?
It was both of our ideas. It was kind of a combination of both the work that Carin and I have been doing on kind of both coasts, you know, her group with Voice Actors of NYC and my group in LA, Gardner Street Group, and the Voiceover Collective here in Los Angeles. And it just kind of became this idea of what if we could combine these two and bring in the rest of the country. It's kind of where it started. And then it grew out of the Brad Venable Scholarship and Fund that we were running. That kind of became where the business side of it came from, because we needed to put together a nonprofit so that we could handle all of our kind of financial aid stuff that we've been doing over the last few years, that up until we did NAVA had been coming out of our personal accounts. So we've been handling a lot of financial aid and stuff for the voiceover community for a few years, even prior to Brad's passing. We had been doing that, but after that, we kind of rebranded and put everything under one roof of the Brad Venable Scholarship, and then we needed an organization to run that. So that's what we ended up doing.
And then the other part of it too was that in 2020, the minimums to qualify for health insurance through SAG-AFTRA went up, and so a lot of people lost their health insurance coverage through SAG-AFTRA. And we thought, you know, wouldn't it be great if we could form an association that could provide access to health insurance for voice actors? And was that even possible? So Tim actually had been researching this question for a couple of years before we formed NAVA. But when we formed, we decided to really kind of dig in and figure out if it was possible, if it was legal. And we got every answer in the book until finally we found a way to do it. And now we have health insurance plans for all of our members. If you qualify for membership, you can also qualify to have access to a national health insurance plan.
And for those of you that listening, and for those of you listening to the podcast, if you're not familiar with NAVA, here it is in a nutshell. It's a nonprofit association created to advocate and promote the advancement of voice acting industry through action, education, inclusion, and benefits. I didn't steal that from your website. So
Yep.
is it what is the website link?
NAVAvoices.org.
Well, we appreciate what you're doing, and you guys have been advocates of. I'm a non-union voice actor. I have been for well over 30 years, and the stuff I'm seeing you guys do in the social circles has been absolutely amazing. Even outside of the current, rumor has it there's a strike going on in LA. I heard a couple of whispers about that. But I appreciate what you guys have been doing to educate a lot of talents on what a voice actor can do and what they can't do. And why don't we jump into that lane next? And Carin or Tim, either one of you can answer the question.
I mean, first,
so even if you're a union voice actor, let's just get right to it. Tell us what you can and cannot work on during the strike.
Basically, you cannot work on any contracts that would fall under an agreement with the AMPTP. That's the general rule. What that translates into is TV and film, because this is a strike on only the SAG-AFTRA TV theatrical contract,
Right.
not any, non-broadcast contracts, not commercial contracts, not video game contracts. Those are all, you are free to do all of that work and encouraged to do that work by SAG-AFTRA. It's just the TV theatrical contract that is under strike, and those jobs that would be under that contract you cannot do.
And to add to that, it's not a strike against the companies as a whole. It's a strike against the contracts those companies are using. So, for example, you can't work on a Netflix job if it falls under the TV theatrical contract, but you can work on a Netflix job if it falls outside of that contract. You
like
can't
the
work
dubbing contract, for example.
Exactly. You can't work on a Disney job, but if it falls under that contract, but you can work on one that falls outside of the contract. So a lot of people are confused, and they're like, well, I can't go audition or work for Netflix. Why is this person going and auditioning for Netflix? Well, it's under a different contract. And that's where some of this confusion lies. And as we know, in voiceover, we fall under multiple different aspects of, these companies are doing multiple things. You could be doing an internal video for Netflix. You could be doing something that falls outside of the contract. So it gets to be very confusing. And we can see why it's confusing. Even it's confusing if you're if you're in the SAG-AFTRA information area where we actually know what's happening. It's even more confusing if you don't have access or follow all of that info.
Now, do either of you two have the power to end the strike by sunset?
Only if we have a cow as white as milk, a cape as red as blood, a hair yellow as corn, and a slipper as pure as gold.
That's when you
but
know.
those things are hard to come by.
That's when you know NAVA has become all powerful, when you guys can make a phone call and end this shit.
Right.
No, we do not.
Exactly.
And I want to add something else too, and that's that, SAG-AFTRA is striking, but this is an issue that goes far beyond just SAG-AFTRA and SAG-AFTRA members and the union. What they are fighting for in these in this contract negotiation, it's things that we all need in our lives as actors, as voice actors, as creatives, as artists. Things related to AI, things related to fair pay, things related to pay based on viewership, all kinds of really, really important things that we hope get decided in the favor of, creatives and actors, because it will trickle down to all the rest of our contracts and all the rest of our work. So it's important to educate yourself about the strike. It's important to, in my opinion, stand with those who are striking.
Even if you're non-union, this is huge for non-union voice actors. And I was telling some students and a lot of friends in the non-union community, listen, man, most non-union talent agents are using the SAG-AFTRA card as a reference to kind of base their own rates on. So this is going to be good for us. The AI stuff is going to be good for the voice acting business universally. And while it doesn't really affect us right now in as far as what we can do and what we can't do, in the long run, it's also going to be very good for non-union voice actors. Wouldn't you agree with that?
It's going to be good for the entire voiceover industry. It's going to be good for the entire, I think it's going to be great for all artists across the board. I think we are seeing, a revamp or a recalibration of how we perceive our value as actors, as what we bring to the table. And I think one of the things that we've discussed a lot, that I say this frequently, and it kind of is something that seems simple, but people kind of go, oh, I hadn't thought about that. Is that these jobs we do, we're one half of this contract. We're a half of this equation. We are not here just to be told that this is what the rate is, this is how much it should be, this is what you should do, and this is how long you should do it for. We can say, you know what, we do have the power to say, I'm sorry, I don't agree with that rate, or I don't agree with the amount of usage this is going to be. And I think we're more empowered to say no to something that we feel is exploitative than we have been in a while, I would hope. I think that people are seeing, oh, well, it's not a big deal if I just do this one little job for a little less money than I had thought. The damage is much more tangible and real than it used to be when that free or low paying job couldn't take your voice and now use that voice in perpetuity for anything they want to without paying you. That's a danger that is beyond a union or non-union or FICOR or pre-union, whatever you want to call that. It's an industry-wide, and when I say industry, I think artistic community. This is musicians and sketch artists and animators and everybody in this. That we're at a point where we're seeing some change that we haven't seen since the 60s. Right. I mean, we're seeing a kind of a re-understanding and a recalibration of where we as artists, and we are artists, we are voice actors, internal videos, the art that people bring to an e-learning video, the things that keep somebody listening, and if you're an HR and you're having to watch this video, the things that will keep somebody awake and listening is what we as voice actors can bring to the medium that we work in.
That's outstanding. Have you let's go to AI for just a second, because obviously that's a concern, both union and the non-union. Have you guys seen a recent shift, like I have, of clients who maybe tested the waters but didn't like what was inside, came back to the real voice actors, because not only do our voice actors just better to work with because we can do live directed sessions and we can make adjustments, but I've actually had clients that have used the word creepy. I felt creeped out. I couldn't sleep knowing that I hired this AI service, and it felt like one client, and I quote him, it says, every time, I used an AI service twice, and both times I had to jump in the shower immediately afterwards because, it feels kind of dirty and creepy. And there's also, it's maybe this sounds weird, but there's almost this kind of sense of guilt that some clients are like, oh, I don't even know if that was legal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's true.
I think weird. So I see some, while there's always reason for concern, and Tim and I have gone back and forth on this for well over a year. But while there is concern, there is some good stuff coming out of this as well. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen. Yeah, Karin, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think people prefer to hear people.
Yeah.
There is a public, and there are some jobs, let's be totally honest, that humans cannot do. For example, I always say, if you want the entire New York Times read to you on your smart speaker the moment it's published without any mistakes, I can't do that as a voice actor, sit in my booth and record the entire New York Times as quickly as possible and not make any mistakes and edit it and put it out on your smart speaker. That's something that a synthetic voice has to do, because that is not a job that a human can do. But if it is a job a human can do, other humans like to listen to other humans.
Yes.
And if you are listening to a synthetic voice as a human, it can get kind of uncanny valley creepy, and you don't really, in your mind, you're like, something's off about this and I'm not sure what it is. I can't quite put my finger on it. And it's that it's not a real person who said it.
Right.
And I think we can tell, and maybe in the future we won't be able to tell, but right now you really can tell. And companies, I think, want to hire people because their consumers actually want people.
Are you?
Terry.
Go ahead, Tim.
So you and I have been around this. We've been in the forums and discussions on this, and I think one of the things that we're both missing, and I think that I'm kind of latching on to more and more, is that the people who actually work with us now and are our clients, they're not going to go somewhere else. They're going to do exactly what you're saying. The issue, though, is that there's a whole group of people who don't know the voiceover industry, who are going, oh, well, here's something I can get into, without understanding what it means to do a directed session, without understanding what it means to have to go through and do pickups. Yeah. So those are the people that I'm more concerned about when I think about AI coming in and synthetic voices taking over the work, is that people aren't even going to get to the point where they work with human voice actors in the first place to know that what they're doing is a disadvantage to them or is not the quality they could get. It's the tech companies who are saying, well, we're just going to do this. It's the other, it's somebody looking at the software and saying, oh, well, I can just put together, an AI casting site and just get rid of all the casting directors, or I can put together this, and this, and just have AI do everything. They don't have that experience of working with the humans that we're used to working with. So I think I agree with you in that I think the people who go and do this are going to come back, or the people who have worked with voice actors and go to AI are going to come back. It's the ones who've never worked with humans in the first place that are going to think that the AI is good enough for what they need, and that I think is the concern that I look at when I see it encroaching on
that's
our
a
business.
good point. And I have to say, I think the people who should be really concerned are voice actors who are already, charging dumpster rates. I don't want to harp on Fiverr. We see a lot of that in the social circles and on forum, but if I'm a client looking for a really good deal and I don't have a lot of money to spend anyway, so now I have another choice. I can hire this Fiverr talent for $10, or I can hire this AI service. And I would be a little nervous if I were one of those talents, to be honest with you.
Well,
Yeah.
and it's a great example of where the training and all of this preparation comes into play to make sure that you don't go out there and put yourself at a disadvantage, so that you are better than an AI service. Because the reality of this, and we've all seen this, is that there are voice actors who are being hired and are not good at all, unfortunately. Right. And it's either due to their lack of education, it's due to their lack of having the right equipment that they need, it's due to their lack of understanding what it means to do pickups and be able to do seamless pickups into a project. Those are the ones that are going to have issues. And I think that it's this education that we're all doing to say, okay, you can be a voice actor, but before you actually go out there and do the work, these are all the things you need to do so that you do have an advantage over the AI when you get out there, because that barrier to entry has now just moved up a little bit. Of that, your quality has to be better, your pickups have to be better, your understanding of how to do a directed session has to be to the point where you're professional.
And also, I think it's going to be harder to get there, because that entry level work now is going to be taken over by AI. And so, when I started in 2014, I was doing crappy jobs on online casting sites just to kind of get my feet wet and figure out, oh, what does it mean to do a pickup? How do I do a directed session with a client? This is my first one. It's on Skype. This is so weird, and I got to learn that, so that when it came time for me to do my first big national TV commercial and I recorded it from home with the director on the line, I knew what I was doing because I had done a bunch of, crappier jobs through online casting sites, and I was prepared. But if that work is now gone, it's going to be so much harder for newer voice actors to get that experience, to get to the professional level where they need to be for, professional level, high paying work. And that's really scary too.
So that was 2014. I bet you were on Elance.
Elance.
Now I just proved how old I am, because that was it was kind of like, do you guys remember guru.com?
No.
Oh my God, this is embarrassing. This was I think we're talking 2009, maybe before you got started. Okay. Elance is something else now. It's just kind of a lower rate audition site, not necessarily a pay to play site. Now I'm fumbling it because I don't remember what the current name is.
I'm gonna look it up. I don't know what that is.
Let's take a step back from there. And I started in '96, and when I first came to LA, the only auditions you could get were off Craigslist. That's where I found this is even before.
Those were the best. Weren't they the best clients?
Those were amazing.
Oh yeah, they would want. Can you do this 400-page audiobook for $125? And does that include all the edits and revisions? That kind of
exactly. And
Tim,
you're
did we ever meet at one of the old conference? Did we ever meet at one of the old James and Penny conferences in LA back in 2007, 2008? Did we meet at any of those?
I don't think so. No, I actually I left voiceover and got back into it in 2014. I had quit and came back. And so I basically, because of the lack of education, lack of knowing what to do, and being in LA, I showed up to LA with a demo in 2002, and I'm like, cool, I'm going to show up to LA and let my voiceover career support my music career, because that's going to be a piece of cake and simple to do. Right. And then failed at it, for 20 years, so.
Two business. You go to LA to work on two of the toughest industries ever, and you went for it. Right. Well, if the music thing doesn't work out, I can just do voiceover. Or the voiceover doesn't work out, I'll just be a musician.
Exactly.
Speaking of that, I do see
gotta have a dream.
I do see an acoustic guitar in the background there. Do you want to? How about just a couple minutes of Faith by George Michael? Do you got it? Can you play that?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, you want a bit of that? I
But,
got a bad wrist. I have a ukulele injury from playing too much ukulele.
oh
So,
my God.
which is not
Of
a
all the
joke. It's
injuries to
not a
get,
joke.
of all the injuries, you got hurt playing a ukulele?
Yep, I play in a ukulele orchestra on Monday nights with a bunch of other voice actors,
Oh my
and I've
God,
been
that's
playing too much.
great.
I play bass, and I literally have hurt my arm from playing too much ukulele bass. So,
By the way, for having you guys on this podcast, you're going to send me one of those NAVA sofa pillows, right?
oh yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, the
That's a
NAVA sofa pillows.
there you
They're available in our Zazzle shop.
That I think I might need to have one of
go. Yeah,
those. I like the
and
colors. It's a good match for every piece of furniture that I own. So it's like
Oh,
perfect. Yeah,
like
good.
perfect. It's like
you
perfect.
thank
Love
Karin
it.
for that one. Karin's the graphic designer of the brain behind that
The
that
graphic designer
masterpiece
of all of NAVA.
of all of Nava.
Where do you see the I know it's really hard to predict this kind of stuff, but what is your gut telling you guys of how long this strike is going to last? Is it going to be a few months?
I think
really
we're
It's
hard
going.
already
to
been a couple
say.
of months for the writers,
Yeah.
right? At least a couple.
Yeah.
It's
Um,
really
it-
hard to say.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we're all hopeful that it'll be decided by early fall, but it's very hard to say. It's very hard to say.
Yeah, Duncan Crabtree Ireland, who's the executive director of SAG-AFTRA, said in an interview that he wouldn't be surprised if this goes into early next year. Ideally, that doesn't happen, but I think the reasoning behind that is that this isn't something. I don't think this is something that we can compromise on in the ways to get it done with in the ways that we could have in the past. I think that there's just too much potential damage that could happen right now, and this is a global issue, right? I mean, this is we talk about voiceover being a global industry because what we're seeing now, what NAVA also is one of the founding members of the United Voice Artists, which is an 18-nation, 26 association group of global voiceover associations. WOVO being the other United States one, who's part of that as well. We were one of the founding members about in January or so that's working to educate the global voiceover world and the global industry about this, because you have, as we all know, you could be in your studio connected with a client in Canada, another talent in Kenya, and a director in Sweden.
Yeah.
And whose laws are we under? Whose rates are we paying? Who's going to be responsible for something if something happens and you have to go to court? Who is the actor in Kenya being paid a fair rate based on the job that's being done? Is the company in Sweden paying a fair rate to the United States voice actor, vice versa? Is this something that we know is affecting globally the entire industry? So beyond just what we're seeing with SAG-AFTRA, what happens in SAG-AFTRA, and as SAG-AFTRA tends to be the gold standard in a lot of areas globally for artists, that if this doesn't get set well for SAG-AFTRA, it's going to ripple across the world.
I hear you there, and we all have friends. You guys are friends in the industry, and this would have been cooler if you guys were actually on the picket lines right now, and we were doing this podcast right from the picket line. It would just be a little more action and adventurous. But Tim, was that you? Was that Facebook? It's so hard to tell what was current and what happened like a year ago. You know how it is. But were you just at Comic-Con?
We were
Yes.
just at Comic-Con this last weekend. So NAVA had actually scheduled a panel to talk about AI from a performer's perspective a few months ago, and with the strike and everything that happened, SAG-AFTRA joined us. Duncan Crabtree Ireland joined us on the panel and sat next to myself and the other members of NAVA who were on the panel and discussed. Had a press junket. We had 65 or 70 press outlets there talking about voiceover, and brought the idea of voiceover as a very specific aspect of SAG-AFTRA, hopefully into the spotlight, and voiceover as a very specific industry that works within the other artistic industries. We talked a lot about voiceover in general. NAVA is union agnostic, pro voice actor, so we have members from all parts of the community. We have, and so we didn't. This became a really great conversation or discussion about voiceover and the threat that AI brought to voiceover and how that relates to the SAG-AFTRA strike. But it was something that NAVA sponsored and NAVA hosted, and we were fortunate enough to have Duncan as a guest for our press junket and our panel, and it got picked up globally. Variety, Deadline, Entertainment Weekly, AOL, Microsoft. It has gone around the globe with this concept that voice actors are, kind of the tip of the spear. We're not, I think some other areas we've seen hit early, but voice acting has become very much of a prominent visual for some of the dangers of AI.
And Carin, you were there too. I didn't see all the photos, but
I was there. I was not on the panel, but I was there to like do all of the stuff that needed to be done behind the scenes.
Oh, awesome.
And pass out things and hand out things and talk to people and make sure people were where they were supposed to be. And I have to say, sitting there watching these people that I work with every single day up on that panel, talking about the issues that we care about in such a profound way, made me so proud. And I really felt really emotional seeing how much all of these people care about all of us, and to know that this is because of, a need that needed to be filled, that Tim and I were like, you know what? Now's the time. Let's figure it out. It was awesome. It was really awesome to be there.
Well, and I think, it's hard sometimes for people that aren't involved in the arts to know how passionate of what really ends up being, I realize it's a broad group of people, but yet it's a small group of people too.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't understand it, but there's always a little bit of jealousy out there because they want that in their industry, and they don't have what we have in our industry. I'm not saying that to sound boastful by any stretch of the imagination, but just like what you said, Carin, it gets emotional. And when you go to a conference or you go to Comic-Con and you hear the passion and the voices going into the microphone, and you hear that, wow, these people really care about my well-being and my future. So I really appreciate what you two are doing with this organization. And I know there's been other outfits that have tried to do what you're doing and you're doing it right and far more successfully. And maybe, I don't know what it is, but you just kind of have that magic touch, I guess. Maybe it's that dog pillow on the sofa back there, Tim. I don't know. I'm always stalking the Zoom video to find out what flaws I can find in the background of somebody's video.
Right.
I think I was talking to somebody the other day about NAVA. Actually, I think it was Maria Pendolino, who's one of our board members and who's amazing. She's wonderful. We were saying, I think the reason why NAVA has been so successful in the last few, really only months since we opened up membership. It's been over a year since we officially formed. We officially formed in March of 2022. But we didn't open up membership until we knew that we had a healthcare plan that people, could have access to. We didn't want to take anyone's money before we knew that we had something to offer. But I think part of it is because Tim is really like a let's do it and we'll figure it out, as best we can. Let's get the best people on this to figure it out. We're going to do it. And I feel like I am, also I kind of say yes and figure it out as we go. Right. But the follow through of like, we want to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to devote time and energy to it, and we're going to make it happen in the absolute best way possible with the best people, has been, I think, really good. I don't think we've promised anything that we aren't working on, right now in all of our different ways. So,
and to add to that, I think the foundation that NAVA came from, being the two groups, this community that we've had on Facebook and that we've had in person, that grew out of what the community needed. I think a lot of what Carin and I have put together, what she put together in New York and I put together in LA, wasn't like, let's make a group and tell people what they need. It was, here's a bunch of people that are doing the same thing we're doing, and what do we all need to get better at and in this career, and what can we all do? I always say that, I started Gardner Street, which was my group in 2014. It was a bunch of us getting together who were just failing at voiceover, and we just got together and started failing together. And as we failed, we saw all these things that we needed. I said, okay, so this is what we can do to fix this, so somebody doesn't have this problem going forward, as opposed to, okay, let's put together a group and we're going to do this, this, and this is how it should be done, and this is what people should do. We looked at this and said, okay, what needs to be filled? What can we help with? What can we do that people need? And we came out to help with that. So part of being nimble and part of just saying yes is that somebody needs something, or we see an issue, we can say, yes, we can help with that, as opposed to trying to say that you need to do this way, and this way. We're trying to be aware of the needs and fill those needs. And I think that's really what, to me, that's what really has become the foundation of what both of us do.
The other thing is, because we're small and nimble, as Tim said, we can do things really quickly. Whereas a group like SAG-AFTRA, which is, wonderful and awesome, but they represent, tens of thousands of people and lots of different kinds of actors, stunt performers and on-camera actors and voice actors, and we're just voiceover. So
and
we
even influencers now.
Yeah, even influencers
isn't
now.
that wild?
Exactly. Yeah. So it's harder for SAG-AFTRA to take their giant cruise ship and make a big turn in any direction, because it's just a lot of mass headed in one direction. But
Right.
we are like a little speedboat, and we can, with all our little members, and we can go and we can turn the other way if it looks like there's danger up ahead. And we can kind of test the waters before the cruise ship gets there, I think, and radio back to the cruise ship to be able to tell them what's ahead. So I think, we really appreciate all of the other groups that exist in voiceover and that support actors, and we're trying to really work with all of them as much as possible, including SAG-AFTRA and UVA and the other unions that exist in the world, so that we're all kind of collectively going down this path together.
Well, I think people have really kind of taken a liking to what you're doing because you are small. Less is always more when it comes to organizations and working with people who are absolutely, 1000% passionate about what they're doing. And you guys, please don't go corporate. Please don't go corporate.
I wouldn't even know how.
No. So it is, you guys are, growing at a rapid pace here, but I can tell it's important that you kind of keep that kind of small, I don't have the right word here, but where it's you're small and approachable, put it that way.
Yeah. I mean, and that's, when you go to the website, when you send an email, it goes to my phone, and it goes, and if somebody needs, if it has to go from there, it goes to Carin, and Carin and I will handle answering everything. We have somebody who's an operations manager who helps us now. So it might go to one of the three of us, but you're going to email, and you're going to know, if you go to the instant messenger on the website, that's going to go to my phone. I answer all of those. I personally look at every membership that comes in, so we know who everybody is when they come into this association. And if people call and they want to talk to me, I'll pick up the phone and talk to them. If they need to talk to Carin, they'll talk to Carin will talk. This is what what we're doing, because I view we're just a part of this community, and we have been a part of this community for years, just alongside everybody else. And that's, to me, is important, to keep that, ability to be able to be here doing this, because we know from experience, we're not just on the outside looking in and telling people what they need. We're here experiencing this. We're seeing these contracts. We're signing these contracts. We've had the experience of being taken advantage of on jobs that we signed for way too low. We've had the experience of having, finding our spots being used beyond when they should be used. We've worked with coaches and demo producers that have taken our money and not given us what we needed out of that. So we come at this from experience of having done all these things that people are coming through and doing right now.
A good note to end on, I think, because I know Carin's got a gig. Thank you both for being a bright star in our universe. Tim Friedlander, Carin Gilfry, founders of the NAVA organization. And this was a lot of fun. Will you guys please come back if I
Yeah.
promise you
love to.
if I promise you a life supply of pot brownies, will you will you commit to it? I'm going to have you sign a contract.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's fun.
But no, seriously, thank you for taking time out. This is going to be kind of a fun little mini series as we talk about SAG-AFTRA. I've got other SAG-AFTRA actors coming on next week too. So this was a great way to kick it off, just because of what your organization has done already to not only support the voiceover community, but to support what's going on the picket lines as well.
Cool.
Well, thank you for having us.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, everybody. And again, the web address is Carin?
NAVAvoices.org.
Terrific. Tim, Carin, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for having us.